All right, so good morning, everybody. Welcome to our April webinar. Um, we are still having a couple of people join us, one or two of the panelists as well. We decided because we've got a full house of panelists today, we're not going to do our normal introductions, but what Carl is going to do in the background is he'll pop in the chat any upcoming events and links to register. He'll also make sure that he sends the relevant name and contact details of all of our co-panelists today. And then, of course, the session is recorded as always. A copy of the recording will be made available on our website, and everyone's details will be shared there as well. And to our co-hosts, if there's anything, any documentation that you'd like to share, anything that you're going to mention during the session that you'd like to share with the audience, you're more than welcome to send it through to Carl, and he can post it on the website as well. Once that is up, we'll post it on social media, and you can go check it out, and then refer to it as and when needed. So we are, I believe, in the midst of AGM season or special general meeting season or general meeting season, some informal meetings there as well. I know that our calendars are getting a bit full with invitations to meetings. Poena, I can imagine that yours is as well. And to our colleagues that are chairing meetings, attending meetings, Mike, Glen, Abrie, when you guys attend meetings as specialists, Jannie. So we are of the thought that perhaps a nice discussion about general meetings might be a good idea. For those of you that have followed the Let's Get Physical events over the last couple of years, you'll notice all the familiar faces. And I thought we would just kickstart the event this morning and start chatting about some of the things that we're seeing in general meetings. And of course, you are more than welcome to add your comments to the chat. You can raise your hand, unmute yourself if you'd like to ask anything. And then for all of our co-hosts, obviously, we'll keep it nice and participatory, so you guys interrupt each other, as I know that we can do. So to start off, I think I'm going to hand over to Sarah to give us a quick example of a meeting that she was just at and what she experienced at this meeting, and then we can chat about it amongst ourselves as a team as well. You sorted, really, all good. Cool. All right, Sarah, over to you.
Thank you, Zerlinda, and good morning, everyone. So yes, Monday evening, I had a special general meeting for my scheme that my family owns in and that I live in, for a very important waterproofing project that NABA is actually involved in. And it's quite a considerable amount of money on the table. So it would have been nice if everyone in the scheme actually came to the table with their questions and their concerns, or at least to get involved. I actually misspoke the other day on Cape Talk. It's only 300 units, not 600, but we needed 125 people for quorum. And besides all of the NAMA attendees and the managing agent and the executive managing agent online, it was me and another owner. So we did not achieve quorum. I'm very much hoping that everyone was playing the long game and knew about the adjournment and is going to make an appearance next week. But yeah, I think this is a familiar story that a lot of schemes face.
Yeah, definitely. I was also at an adjourned meeting last night, an annual general meeting, box standard annual general meeting, and we didn't have a quorum last week, and this week we still had to wait a while before we got started, and I actually had to test my audio a few times because everyone was so quiet. I thought perhaps I was missing something, and I kept on checking to see if everyone was on mute or unmuted because people were just not participating. And when it came to items that I think is important, such as the budget, the consideration of the financial statements, there was like literally crickets. Nobody said anything. And I was like, okay, I take this as approved. Let's vote. Let's move on. Let's move on, which was great for me because the meeting didn't go on for too long. But I can imagine that if your annual general meeting is not very well attended or participated at, it's concerns for the body corporates. I think, Poena, you probably attend more meetings than any of us. What has your experience been of late with attendance and meeting quorum and adjourned meetings, both in sectional title and HAs? Ooh, can't hear you, Poena. Is it just my side?
No, also can't hear him.
Also can't hear you. Okay. All
But,
right.
but maybe while Poena is sorting that out, I just posted a question in the chat to all of the panelists. Do you guys find in your experience when you attend any kind of general meeting that, when there is poorer attendance, it's usually schemes that are more well managed, where, owners don't like raise concerns and don't hound the managing agent and things like that? Or do you find that it's the opposite?
Mareliza, Willie, you both owners in HAAs and trustees and all those fun things. Would you like to give that one a go?
Okay, from my point of view, I think that the better run schemes actually have people that attend meetings. So where you have problems, then owners tend to not be there and don't care, and that is actually the result why the scheme becomes so badly managed and have all the problems. And your schemes where you actually have attendance, they seem to be running like clockwork.
That's positive. Very positive. Mareliza, any comments on that?
Yeah, I actually have an opposite experience, but yeah, I tend to see the schemes where there's a big dispute amongst owners and it never gets to finalization. People don't want to approve a budget. It's always the AGMs that's very disruptive, and we don't get anywhere. And often the budget is left open. I've seen that where they actually never even accepted the budget and nothing happens. So yeah, I have a different experience. I think it differs probably then.
But if Mareliza, she's a member of a scheme called Kailami Reach, and if she attends that meeting, she'll see that there's a lot of people that actually attend that meeting. We always have quorum, and the scheme is very well run.
Today? Yeah, that's
Willie just threw you under the bus there, Mareliza, saying you need to attend your meetings as a member. Mareliza, just to go back to you quickly with the arrear levy defaulters, do you find that the defaulters tend to attend general meetings or not? And I know in HAAs, there's often clauses that say that you can't attend a meeting if you're a defaulter, but do you think that they attend meetings or do they shy away from them?
On an HOA level, I can't really answer, but sectional title I've seen, so where we are involved in the collections, they're very vocal, the debtors, the arrear owners. And yeah, but yeah, that's my experience.
Yeah.
And it's often ridiculous arguments and it just doesn't get anywhere. Again, we're in the same position. Like people tend to want to just be heard, and I respect that, but we need to get to finalization. And there's no argument on paying levies. Or if you have an issue with the budget, let's discuss it. And which is why we're here at the AGM. But often it's nonsensical, the arguments, and we get nowhere. So yeah.
And then I see Poena has just dropped off. I'm assuming that he's just sorting out the audio quickly. To Abrie and Mike, Glen, Jannie, I know that you're online as well. Do you guys get invited to annual general meetings and special general meetings often? Jannie, Sarah did mention that you guys were at her special general meeting the other day, and it seemed to have been a little bit of a waste of your time because there wasn't a quorum. So does that happen often to you guys? Do you have to sit through the entire meeting? Do you get to speak and then leave? Do you find things interesting when you hang around? Glen, you're shaking your head. You've got some stories to tell.
No, Zerlinda, I've been an advocate. I struggle with sectional title. I couldn't live in it. I don't think. I think I'd go mad. But when I see, and I have been to a few where it's a professional trustee, an executive managing agent, somebody that's kind of working in tandem with the managing agent and running it, dare I say, like a proper business meeting or like a slightly more structured thing, rather than the managing agent overwhelmed with 100 people asking questions and complaining and talking about the dog and the parrot and the noise and the car and the speed bump and the paint on the bill. I just think those types of meetings run far more efficiently when you've got controls in place. That it's just my perspective of the few that I've attended, where it's when it's done with sort of professional bodies in place that really can know the law, and you almost feel like, having learnt a bit now, you almost feel like they're checking each other in place, and I think it's just a healthier relationship for sectional title.
Very good points. Willie?
I want to confirm what Glen is saying. I mean, we are the executive managing agent of a specific scheme, and they have been trying to get through the changes to the plans that have been made for about 4 years now, and have not been successful to get it done. And it literally took me 40 minutes and it was done. It was accepted, and we're moving forward because we understand the law and we know how to implement that and how to say, but this is what needs to happen. If you don't do this, then that's the consequence. Because people just said, well, we're not going to approve, we're not going to comply with it, we're not going to make payment. And I said, well, guys, then you must understand that we will have to demolish. And that's what we will do. We will get an order to demolish. And 5 minutes later, it was done. It was all done. So I agree with Glen. We find those meetings where we run it as the EMA much easier, and it just goes like clockwork. So definitely so.
Definitely lessons to be learned from you. And then Jannie, Abrie, when you guys have to go to a meeting where the body corporate has been struggling to take resolutions, do you find that the valuable input that you can give on the projects help the owners to make a decision, or is there still a little bit of running around like headless chickens?
Okay, I think from our side, strange things happen, and especially when the trustees are the guilty parties in it, where we almost get the feeling that they discourage people to attend so that they can eventually make the final decisions, and then they vote not to comply. So I think it depends a lot on who's going to have to spend the most money. And if it's some of the trustees, and it is very often trustees, they don't want this to go to any vote where the vote might be that they have to comply.
Interesting. Hey, Jannie, comments from you?
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Just want to make sure you can hear me.
Yes,
Okay, I
good.
see some smiles there. From a tender department side on projects, we always sit a lot in this type of meetings. I've sat with Willie and his team as well. And I do fully agree, when there's control and structure in this type of meetings, decisions get made way easier and way quicker. And if that person that's got the control has got the right knowledge, these decisions goes faster. I had a recent discussion at one of the events where I mentioned to all the trustees, managing agents, and owners, like we're all here because of a building. So if the building, decisions around the building, and if it must be maintained, law and structure must be in place. If that is not in place, we are failing our own jobs and our own bread and butter. Because all of us are here, we're either staying in a building, or we're managing or maintaining or assisting a building in some or other way. So I always say to the clients, if the information that we provide is on the table correctly, we all just normal people. If you're buying something, let's say you're buying a car, and a guy tells you, this car is 800,000 Rand, and he sends you a one-liner, and you don't know what you're buying, when you're buying it, how much kilometers warranty is on it, or anything. If the information is not correct, you're not going to buy that vehicle. You want to have a full quote, what's all included, what's included, what's going to happen, when is it going to happen, who's going to pay for it, how do I pay for it? And that is something from our side that we always put a lot of effort in, is to give the clients the correct information. And as Willie mentioned, then the decision making is way easier. It's quicker. If the client or the trustees have the correct information on the table, not just a random quote or a random explanation, or the trustees just said, listen, we need to spend R1 million now, and you don't know on what. Trustees cannot make a decision. And I think from a trustee and owner perspective, people has become, they're like almost like nonchalant. They don't want to come to the meetings because things aren't happening. things isn't managed correctly. The trustees doesn't have the correct knowledge. And it's not their fault. It's just there's a lot of things that's going on. So you need to like update yourself and make sure you've got the correct information. But it's definitely from the trustee and AGMs. We sit in a lot of AGMs, and then we sit and we wait for quorum and we wait for people. And then they realize like half the people is actually the NABA team that's at the meeting. And then we're like, okay, we must reschedule for next week. And we're like, okay, we'll reschedule. So we do that a lot. But we always tell the clients, listen, we just need to make a decision. Like, we need to have a yes or no. We don't want to waste anybody's time, and we also don't want to waste our time. We're here to help you to maintain and upgrade your building. But it's definitely becoming worse, to be honest, in my opinion. When there's a special general meeting about where everybody needs to pay, then people are quickly to get there. But normal AGMs and stuff, people just don't rock up, and it's not a good thing. You can't maintain a building like that.
Yeah. Poena, let's go back to you with that attendance question. Sorry, Abrie, and then we'll jump to you. Poena, your audio. No, we can't hear you now. Oh, no. And I know you've got so much to say. Sorry about that, Poena. Sorry, Abrie. Off you go.
No, I just wanted to add that even when there's a quorum, and fortunately we're always first and so on, the biggest battle that we have is to deal with misinformation. And the misinformation often comes from the managing agent as well. And of course the trustees, and then, everybody have a brother that knows this or whatever. So misinformation is a huge problem, dealing with the technicalities, and then to convince people that have been convinced by the trustees, by the MA or whatever. Normally after the meeting, you'll get the people coming and really being interested in it. In the meeting, they are very reluctant to challenge anything that they were told before. And that really means you need the next meeting to deal with the true information. At that meeting, you're not going to make inroads with the information. So the ideal would be if managing agents and trustees that is not clued up do not make statements and mislead with, I'm sure not with bad intentions necessarily, but that create quite a bit of issues in the meetings, and then afterwards convincing people of the truth.
Yeah, good points. Mike, I know that you go to a lot of meetings as well. You're very active in your own community scheme too. And I know that you are very well prepared when you go to meetings for information to individuals. Do you have any comments on the quorum issue, the adjournment issue, and then of course the participation from specialists such as yourselves at meetings and how that influences votes?
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Zerlinda. Yeah, it's really interesting. We get invited to quite a few meetings, and Candace will agree with me. We sometimes think that we get invited to the mad meetings because we see some real bizarre meetings going on. But I was listening with interest. I agree wholeheartedly. When a meeting is run by professionals, they go very much more smoothly. But there are, and I just want to add this. I was thinking there's a lot of good managing agents that also, if they take control of the meeting well, I see it being well run. I think Candace and I often walk out of a meeting and say, wow, that managing agent's got that meeting under control. If we are lucky enough to be able to walk out of the meeting as the first presenter, sometimes we have to sit through the whole thing. But I think it depends on who's running the meeting. One comment I sometimes see is when you get the wrong person running the meeting from a chairperson point of view, something which has cropped up. I sometimes see the chairperson, in my view, and when I've been observing one or two, I think, this guy actually is not unbiased. He's very pushing an agenda, and maybe that person shouldn't have been the chairperson at this particular meeting. Should have got somebody who was, not on anybody's side. I think that is a problem when a chairperson is, they're taking a meeting because they're going to run it and they want to achieve an agenda. Yeah, that's my only comment for now. But Willie will remember there's a particular one of our clients, larger clients, where Willie, you had to go. Did I say it? Did you get? Do you want to say it?
Yeah, so I was asked to chair the meeting, and I think at 1 o'clock in the morning, Mike, I sent the last message to you, and I said what's happening. And Mike was still at the meeting at the AGM. At the end of the day, the owners decided not to use me as the independent chairperson, and I was paid for the night. And so the group of owners decided that wanted to take control of the scheme actually then took control of that meeting, and they got somebody else appointed that were running their agenda. And Mareliza now has the honor of dealing with that scheme and with that person with the tattoos all over his face. So her problem, not mine anymore.
Oh my goodness. That's always my thing at meetings as well. If someone doesn't want me to stay as the independent chairperson, I'm like, I'm paid to be here and I'm going to stay because it's my instructions. So either you let me chair the meeting or I'm just going to be paid to sit here. And that generally does do the trick, but you do get these meetings, unfortunately.
No, they voted and they decided that they're going to appoint somebody else. And they were very vocal, the group of hijackers.
Sure.
And they hijacked the whole meeting, and poor Mike had to sit there till the end of the meeting to do his presentation.
But lots of lessons learned, that's for sure.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Awesome.
Yes.
To you.
Sorry, I had to swap out PCs. I don't know what's wrong with my desktop, but in any case, thank you. Yes, so we do have the fortunate insight in that we've run a number of meetings over a number of years. So from a trend analysis, we do analyze our data very carefully. And I can tell you, I normally joke about the ethos, but some buildings just got their own culture. Whatever you do in the last 5 years or 6 years, they've never had a quorum on the first run, or vice versa. They always achieve a quorum. So that is our view on that. I mean, my own building where I'm the chairman, we always have a quorum. But depending on the matters at hand, we have a unanimous resolution, Zerlinda, that you need to drive through. And we already have a no vote. So I go like, well, I might just freaking cancel the thing. I don't know what to do. It's like if you have owners that don't appreciate and we have information sessions, and then they query, why do you have an information session? We go like, listen, we'd like to get participation. We'd like to get into everybody to understand what we're trying to achieve. And they just go like, nah, we vote no. So we go like, okay, well. So in terms of quorum, we do find that some buildings, with whatever you do, would not achieve a quorum, how much effort you put in. However, I must say that on the HRA side, we do fairly, well, regularly, most often, we do get a quorum. And what we do find with the HRAs is that when we send WhatsApp, so we from the system, we send WhatsApps literally half an hour before the meeting. The moment we shoot up those WhatsApps, you can see the quorum picking up considerably because people are going, oh crap, I need to be in the meeting. Sorry for my French, but I need to be in the meeting. And then they all join the meeting. So what we see is that the WhatsApps actually tend to push in and draw in a lot of people into the meeting. People are not reading the notices. I had the meeting last night where I chaired, where they disputed they've not received the budget, show them the invitation, there's your budget. They don't read down to that level. They just see that they need to join. So that's part of the problem. People don't read. And as I say, with respect to owners, they believe that somebody else will look after their building. And as such, they can't bother to join. But there are buildings where the ethos are such a nature, whatever is going to be discussed will be there.
Yeah. I just want to pick up on a couple of things you mentioned. Abrie mentioned earlier that he finds that the votes generally go through at the formal meeting after there's been an opportunity to engage. And often when there isn't an opportunity to engage at the formal meeting, everybody wants to chat about it afterwards. And often, Nicole will know over the years, we often suggest that an information session is held first to answer people's questions, to set their minds at ease and all of those fun things. And Poena, I really do think that that's going to help for your scheme. I can imagine that there's first going to be fireworks to start off with, but then hopefully people will listen. And for the really technical things that you guys deal with, Abrie, Jannie, people need to understand what they are being presented with before they're asked to vote. And often the formal meetings are quite rushed and people don't have an opportunity to ask those questions, especially when your special business items that are normally at a special general meeting are added to the annual general meeting list. And Mike, you said that you had to sit at a meeting, from the start to the end. Often I've been at meetings where the meetings are rushed because there's people such as yourselves at a meeting and the trustees are like, oh, but we still have to, get Jannie to speak or Mike to speak or Abrie to speak. And, they've been waiting and whatever it might be. Something else you mentioned, Poena, which is, and I'll punt MeetingPal for a second. I think it's so valuable to control when the votes are opened, because I find that when you have the opportunity to vote from the start of the meeting on all items, before you even hear the motivation for the resolution, people tend to vote no, which is a difficult thing. I see Hubby Plan Ayendormer, you've got your hand raised. You're welcome to unmute yourself.
Hi, good morning. Thanks a lot. I've just got a question. Sectional title complex. We've got a small little one, 7 units, 3 owners. So one owner owns 3 units, owns 5, and then there are 2 other owners. So it's happened twice in the lifetime of the complex that we have we set a date for the meeting, we don't get a quorum, and then we postpone the meeting, and then we don't get a quorum either. So the Sectional Titles Act, as far as I know, does not provide for that. So if any one of you had experience with something like that, because what I then did in the end is I sent an email after the postponed meeting to all the owners and basically told them, please approve the budget. And the problem that I had is who's going to be trustees. So I told them we are now falling back and all the owners are trustees for the next year. And they must elect a chairperson, and they can do it via round robin because the meeting will never take place. Have you ever had something like that?
Mareliza, Willie, Poena, do one of you guys want to answer that?
By the way, I don't know how to put my hand down.
No, there we go. Don't
Okay, I'll jump.
There we go. Go for it.
No, I've neither dealt with something like that. But I just want to understand the question. You mentioned that with the second meeting, then you'd had the quorum, or because I got cut off, were you not able to adjourn because it's not required to have a quorum at your second meeting?
Yeah, but you have to have at least 2 people present.
Oh, there weren't 2. Sorry, I was a bit.
Yeah,
I missed a few. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah,
so I had to make my own plan, and like I said, I told them, well done, you're all trustees now, and this is the budget. We're increasing it to 10%. If you have any queries, just email me, but nothing happened.
Yeah, I think that was the right way to deal with it. I have been to a meeting where at the adjourn meeting, it was only myself and the managing agent. So literally not one owner attended the adjourn meeting, not even the trustees attended the adjourn meeting. And the advice to the managing agent was to call another meeting. In that case, they were able to get the quorum at the following meeting, but for a while, the scheme was essentially like not managed because you didn't have an approved budget. The trustees actually automatically resign at the start of the annual general meeting, so it was a little bit of a practical application of the law more than anything else. But I think the way that you handled it was probably the only way that you could. And often you guys as managing agents, portfolio managers, really have to think on your feet. I wanted to compliment one of our portfolio managers here. She's actually a portfolio manager in a scheme that I'm involved in personally, Mareliza from Stratafin. She chaired a trustee meeting the other evening and or facilitated, as a lot of portfolio managers would like to say. And one of the trustees messaged me to say, is Mareliza cross with us? And I was like, no, why do you say that? And she was like, no, she was so firm and so active in getting us all involved. And I said, no, she was doing what she's supposed to do as a portfolio manager. And she really placed emphasis on the trustees participating in the meeting. And she didn't, just answer all the questions or let the estate staff answer all the questions. I thought that was very good, but it's sometimes a very difficult thing to do, is to take that practical application or to almost like take decisions on the part of the members and the trustees, but practically sometimes that's the only thing to do. Willie, I saw that you unmuted yourself. Do you want to add to that point?
I just wanted to go back to the previous discussion that we had, and specifically regarding the trustees, that their term came to an end. So I don't think, because there wasn't an AGM, their term did not end. That AGM never started, and as such, they will still be the trustees. And they would then have to call that special or the next meeting. You would not be able to call it as the managing agent because you have no authority to do so. I mean, we're dealing with that you guys are aware of. We're dealing with a High Court matter at the moment where the managing agent called a AGM and trustees was elected, and the managing agent had no authority to actually call that. And we believe that CISOS will actually set that meeting aside. I think Sarah is dealing with that matter at your office.
Yeah.
So we believe that meeting will be set aside, and it has to be called then by CISOS because there is nobody else in this instance, because this is a very special circumstances that there was an administrator with a rule nisi, and the court erroneously, the registrar placed it on the unopposed roll instead of the opposed roll. And when it was on the unopposed roll, the judge then just said it's on the wrong roll, and I strike it off my roll. Meaning that at the end of that afternoon, that order lapsed. So there were no trustees and no administrator. And then the managing agent called the meeting themselves, and trustees were then appointed. So in that instance, CISOS actually had to then call that meeting. And then order a meeting, and then whoever then is appointed. So that's the one point. The other point is that where you have problems, and that's just something that I've seen practically, where you have a problem to get a quorum, I would then put up the levies by about 60 or 70%. So I would put a budget in there with a very high levy, and then everybody is there. And then you agree to a proper levy. So it's just a way of making sure that people come to that meeting. Otherwise, they will have to pay a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then while we're talking about budgets, there's something that's happening here in the Johannesburg area, and maybe if we can maybe discuss that, because that is quite an interesting one according to me. Eskom is changing is increasing their deposits that they want from schemes where they directly supply to the schemes. And in one scheme, we have now had a request or a demand or a increase of deposit that has to be paid within 30 days of 406,000 Rand. So the scheme has to up their deposit by 406,000 Rand. And that scheme obviously did not budget for that in the previous financial year. There is money in their maintenance reserve account, but obviously they can't just take money out of the maintenance reserve account because that is earmarked for something else. So how would you guys say does a scheme deal with a situation like that? I'm trying to explain to Eskom that a scheme needs to make a decision and levies needs to be raised and so forth. But I'm not moving anything with them. They say we want it within 30 days. So how would you guys deal with it?
Anyone? Miss Nell? Sarah?
No
Almost
idea.
this was Kelly.
I would say I would invest in a gas stove.
Almost all that.
It's, I mean, it's similar to the water charges here in Cape Town, you know, like the sanitation charges, and schemes have now, like last year, drastically had to change their budgets and make provision for that and things like that. And I know from our side, we didn't get very far with City of Cape Town on that. I mean, I know they are challenging it in court and things like that, but obviously we haven't heard back.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's just that classic, like people just don't understand, you know, the setup of community schemes and sectional titles specifically. And that one of the whole reasons that people buy into sectional title is that, you know, in a traditionally well-run scheme, things are foreseeable from a financial point of view, and it's a lot more financially palatable for people because you're able to share costs and things like that. But I mean, we always hear like when a scheme has to now prepare for a sudden unforeseen cost and things like that. But I have no idea what you're going to do. I really don't want to be in your situation. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
So my suggestion, we are the EMAs, so Confiance is the EMA in that regard, but we can't obviously take a decision that trustees couldn't take. So we will have to involve owners. So my suggestion, and I've drafted the documentation for that last night, was that we will call a special general meeting on short notice, and then allocate money out of the maintenance reserve. So we'll have to then get a permission from owners to move that, and then levy a special levy payable over a period of time to recoup that money that's paid out of that. And that's the way that we're suggesting it should be handled.
I think that's the most reasonable way to go about it, to be honest with you. I mean, even payment out of the reserve fund, it is for a compliance thing. But I think then your suggestion of the special levy after that to recoup the funds to the reserve fund is like an excellent fail-safe idea to make sure that you stay in compliance, even though there's been this unforeseen thing. And I think that not that I'm a panelist, but something that I find very often in schemes is that you have to make this decision. Like, it's either you're going to decide to pay this amount now, or in 6 months' time, it's going to go to legal action or something like that, and you're probably going to have to pay more. So owners, you need to make a decision now, even though this might not be the technically correct way to do it in terms of the STSMA. This is the most reasonable option we have available to us now. Is everyone on board?
Yeah.
So, Willie, if I can quickly jump in there. So I agree with you. You can't touch the money unless you call a SGM to reallocate the funds. The question that I have is then follow on to that is, if you use your reserve fund, do you spread it over 2 years? Otherwise, you're going to breach your threshold, your reserve fund at the end of the financial year. And in terms of that, you may end up having an audit finding. So then, would you then have that special levy only calculated against the remainder of the financial year?
Yeah, Poena, that is the problem with it, and that's why I thought it may be a good one to discuss, because I think there are many schemes that are faced with this at the moment, because Eskom is doing it currently, and I think they require money. The other way of doing with it as well, and I went and I read all their documentation, and we can issue a guarantee, is to open a different account and then keep the money in the name of the scheme, and then issue a guarantee against that money. so then the money is still there. Technically, it's still the scheme's money, and there is still compliance, but we just have an encumbrance on that money. So maybe that is the other way of dealing with it. But I think we're going to see a lot of that happening. And the problem is we can't say we're going to wait for 6 months, because at the end of the month, if you do not comply, they will disconnect. So they're very adamant that unless the scheme complies, they will disconnect.
Scary times, eh?
And this scheme has not paid their account, I think, in 5 years. So the payment history is absolutely immaculate. And this is what they are doing.
So they're not going to get preferential treatment, unfortunately. It leads us into perhaps a very good topic of participation at schemes. How do you encourage participation? Willie, you mentioned, to encourage people to attend, maybe you add something on the agenda that's a bit of a, pause for dramatic effect type of thing. We've often joked about saying there's a massive special lever coming and you have to attend the meeting and then be like psych as soon as you get a quorum. For participation, we often at meetings, especially online, where people switch their cameras off, mute themselves, and then don't participate. We were at a NABA event yesterday in Cape Town where one of the speakers were giving chocolates to the people that were participating, as a bit of a joke. But I almost thought, wouldn't this be an idea at a meeting to give something away in exchange for participation? Like you'll get a discount on your levies, or you get a parking bay for a month if you actively participate in a meeting, make it worth their while type of thing. We'll start with your windows first in the window replacement if you actively participate. But just as a joke, but like, how do you think would be an idea to encourage people to actively participate once they're at the meeting? So now we've gotten them to the meeting. How do we get them to participate, to speak, to give their comments and views? Poena, you just automatically unmute them, eh?
Yeah, well, no, so what we and I chaired a meeting last night, exactly the same problem that you have is that remember, you can't force people to participate, you can't force them to vote. It's their right to abstain from voting, and you have a lot of, and I say this with respect, a lot of passengers in meetings, even if it's special business, they just don't want to bother to raise their hand even or vote. So it is a difficult one, and what we do find is that, and I'm saying this again back to the earlier point, it depends on the chair. Mike also mentioned it, the chair, and I know when you chair, you challenge people, you beg and plead with them, but that's the only way that you can actually ensure that people participate. If you are abstaining from participating and the chair is also very docile, well, only 2 has voted, it's fine, let's move on, the resolution carries. So what we try to do is, when all of our pals are in the meeting, we try to at least get 50% of the owners to vote. I mean, that at least gives us a fair chance when we do get challenged on anything to say, yeah, you know what, most people did actually participate. But even that is challenging, and especially if one owner owns a lot of units. They can add so much value, and then they are literally the ones that are sitting back and just listening to the show, having their popcorn and slush puppy, and they don't participate.
It reminds me of that meeting that I was at with you, where I had my popcorn and glass of wine.
I was
things are like that.
Saying that one was great. And offered me wine while I'm chairing the meeting.
Yes. Philly.
So I want to go back to a webinar that I held, I think about 3 years ago, where we actually discussed the
abstentions,
right of an owner to abstain.
Yes.
And the common law of meetings says that if somebody abstains, they must leave the meeting and no longer form part of the meeting, and as such do not form part of the quorum any longer. So that is what the common law of meetings says. And if we apply the common law of meetings, and that is what people want to do, they want to abstain, they must go. And then if you do not have a quorum, then in my opinion, you cannot take that vote. So I don't think that if you have a situation like that, that owners can get away with that. And I think chairpersons should actually then say, well, now we don't have a quorum and we can't move forward to actually take this vote. And that is a principle of the common law, and it came out of a Scottish case, I think, of 1812, if I remember correctly. So long standing case law that actually that supports that position.
Moving on through, and I know there's a couple of comments and questions in the chat as well. I'll hand over to Nicole in a minute. I just wanted to ask the questions, and maybe more so from the audience. What are you doing of late when you are not able to serve the notice of the meeting correctly? So we know that for special business items, technically, at least in a body corporate context, we're supposed to send the notice via prepaid registered mail, hand delivery, and email. I can honestly say that when I consult with individuals, I will tell them my practical experience is that one cannot really send notices via prepaid mail anymore. And hand delivery is sometimes challenging because people are not resident at their sections. Do you have any causes of concern for, and Poena maybe aimed at you and Willie and Mareliza from a legal perspective, do you have any causes of concern with sending the notice out just via email, but then being very cautious that the email address is correct, that it's being delivered, maybe even with platforms to see, that it's been accessed and things like that? Any comments on that? Sandy, I note your hand is raised. I'm not sure if it's in line with this or something else, but I'll hand over to you. You can unmute yourself.
It's actually something else, but I'll let you finish this point first.
Okay, awesome.
I think that the legislation needs to be changed, because we can't do something. If we can't do it, we can't do it. It's just practically impossible to do it in South Africa. So we send out via email, but what we try and do is we try and get owners to sign a domicilium notice that choose the email address as the correct address for service, and then you are legally covered by that.
Awesome. Poena?
Yeah, and we also track with the read receipts. So we also have a mechanism in the system where we have a read receipt. Again, last night we were challenged. I could go back and say, listen, the notice was sent on this time. You open it up on that time. Surely you would have been able to read it. Yeah, they've not gone all the way down. Again, back to that where this argument came around. So, well, if you can't read, but to your point, I don't think we are not in a position to perform against what the Act is requiring of us. So we can't send a registered note. There is no way that any of the trustees, portfolio managers, or managing agents can perform against the requirement of the Act.
100%. Sandy, over to you. Just unmute.
I just want to go back. Good morning, everyone. Sorry, let me just put my camera on. So first of all, Zerlinda, a bit of an apology to you because my group had just exploded. I don't know what's going on with everyone, but it's a good thing because they're all asking questions and they're making sure they do everything correctly. So I'm happy about that.
That's amazing.
Secondly,
Well done.
secondly, what I'm seeing, hi, Abrie, what I'm seeing in terms of council, they're doing their own thing, but they don't really fully know or understand that we've got an act to follow in terms of sectional title. So they're imposing these changes, these charges, and then reversing it and forcing people to get smart meters and so on and so forth. So we as trustees and managing agents have a very difficult job trying to juggle all these compliance items that are coming our way, but also making sure that we follow the Sectional Title Act. So I am pushing back in terms of that and saying, hey guys, you can't just do this. We've got a mandate. We've got to give the 60 days notice when we're wanting to do this. We've got to go out and get quotes and whatnot. And what they've done for City of Ekurhuleni is basically an injustice to complexes because of the fact that they came up with this new structure of billing and then suddenly pivot, let's turn around, let's give you time to get the meters. So in our industry, we're trying to professionalize, we're trying to do the right thing, but at the same time, we're also facing all these new nuances, if I can put it that way, that's coming our way. So to you guys as experts, what are your thoughts around trying to juggle and trying to navigate through these different things that's happening? Thanks.
Abrie, Sandy's in your neck of the woods. What, well, not physically, but I mean, she's asking questions about, municipal and all that fun stuff. Do you have any comments there?
Yeah, we have the same type of problems, and it is a fact that a typical council employee, even if they are qualified architects or they are legal people, have very little, if any, understanding of sectional title laws, rules, and regulations. I think you'll remember we discussed that we now, if we want to get copies of building plans of a complex, they want the consent of each and every owner in the complex. And we did go to them and we did tell them, listen, the trustees represent them. We don't get anywhere with that. So it's purely because there's really a little understanding of sectional title with normal people, and then even professionals that's not involved with sectional title, and that is true for lawyers, that's true for architects, that's true for. So I'm not sure how it can be dealt with. You just we and I think everybody like Sandy that try to make a difference, you just get to a dead end where ignorance and lack of knowledge and then lack of interest to familiarize them with the facts just stop everything. So I'm really, we at the end of our wits trying to convince people just to do basic things that have been done for 20, 30 years. There was no problem. Suddenly, some people have decided we now need to follow one part, and poppy is unfortunately the popular one that is used. And it's not always the blonde poppy, it is normally the male that that creates the problem. With the poppy, you can still negotiate, but with the alpha male, you don't get far. So I unfortunately don't have any solutions, and it's getting worse.
Jannie, Glen, Mike, you guys all work in areas where compliance is very important. Mike, from an insurance perspective as well. Any words of advice to trustees and owners to, simplify this process of compliance as opposed to, I suppose, running to us all the time for answers, but, what can they arm themselves with for information for compliance, especially in each of your respective areas?
I think I'll start there. Zerlinda, from my side, I always tell the trustees to run to us rather than to try to sort it out themselves, because there can be a quicker, faster, and easier way to get stuff done. When it comes to compliance, we obviously deal a lot with, when it comes to compliance factors where people want to do alterations or engineering stuff or breaking out of walls. When it comes to structural elements, we always said, like, I know you think you can do it, and the lady at the top did it, but it's not the right thing. Like, it's, it's not the right way to do it. It's incorrect. So we always say, like, when it gets to that type of thing, rather consult with someone, with a professional. You as trustees are not spending money. You as owners, as everybody together, is spending that money on getting the correct information. Not everybody can make mistakes. I do agree with that. But your chances are way less of making a mistake with someone that deals with this type of things every day. We had a situation now where, we had a managing agent also signed a JBCC contract on behalf of the trustees, which means she's now liable for everything. And then the roof blew off. So then everything goes back to what, like Abrie said, the alpha male in the office at City of Cape Town, health and safety and that type of thing, wants to know who took responsibility. There's no questions, like who did the site meetings, who did the checks, who wrote the specifications. It's not just approving a quote and thinking you're safe because the contractor takes the responsibilities. Us as professionals in the business, together with the trustees, must make the correct decisions on what needs to happen at schemes, because we're not dealing with your apartment. We're dealing with everybody's investment. It's not it's all 10 if it's 7 units, or it is 370 units. It doesn't matter. It's the same compliance needs to be kept, and that's quite difficult. A lot of times people go, it's just a small building, why do we need that? Why do we need a health and safety file? I mean, it's just, and then someone falls off a ladder and so 2 million rand claim, which is another situation we're involved in. So because we told them you need to have that things in place, and it's smaller things, I think, of compliancy, and we as trustees and owners and stuff, and I do agree with Abrie, it's becoming more difficult. Prices are going up. People are getting way more frustrated because why is your price double? Well, it's double because I need to struggle more to get information from City of Council and City of Cape Town and City of Joburg and City of Gauteng. It's difficult. Like, they are not used to our industry. They don't understand it. The same when it comes to painting. The guy sitting there, he's just giving you a square rate that his brother's sister's kid is now a painter and he's got that right. And when we explain the rate to him, then he goes like, oh yes, I'm going to be short. And it's small things that you go to people that deal with it every day. If you spend a bit of money, you invest in a professional that can actually assist you, then life becomes way better to make decisions and get compliant in a building. Yeah. And sorry, last point. When it's compliancy, like let's take Abrie deals with this a lot. Like when it gets to building plans and is my Eskom account up to date and is my connections correct? Is my solar panels installed correctly? Is my building structurally safe? Just do it. Don't ask the question. Get the money, do it, get it done, get it over with. Is my rules correct? Pay someone, get the rules right, send it out. Because every time there's an argument, about this and about that, it just goes worse. We're going backwards. And we have a situation now where actually it's not just one thing. They wanted to change a parking bay inside of a complex. And then we realized but this new roof is not on. The swimming pool that you added is not in. This new parking bay at the top is not in. And they're like, but they just did it. And we're like, no, you cannot just do it. First consult with someone to know if you can do it, and then do it on your own accord.
But Nike tells us we can.
Okay, I'm done.
Glen, over to you.
We had an interesting thing the other day, and I was listening to Jannie talk about the safety file there. Fortunately, I shambled my guys and make sure we've got safety and harnesses and all these things. But one of the things that I very recently learned in this year that when you've got big projects and body corporates, and these guys should really have a preset out mandatory for liability in terms of workers on site, that if you take up a painting project or something like that, the contractor should be made to sign a mandatory with the body corporate. And I think that's important from a health and safety space. And the reason being is we can tell our guys daily. I mean, if we go up 3 stories and we're working with ladders, I can buy them harnesses, I can buy them chains, I can buy them straps, I can buy them safety rope, I can buy them everything. But if they don't use it on site, then it's a problem. And it's a serious risk to everybody. I mean, take a fall off a ladder on site in a body corporate, and it's quite sticky for the body corporate. It could become quite sticky for the body corporate because they'll come after you. So just from a point of safety, health and safety, if your project is ongoing for more than a day, or even as short as a day, rather take the time to get a mandatory put together, a health and safety mandatory, and have that contractor sign it, so that you've got it, and just cover yourselves, cover yourselves from the body corporate. You're not necessarily the business owner, but it just transfers that liability from the body corporate's guy back onto the business's guy. The business should be transferring that liability from themselves onto the teams that are actually on the ground and saying, you've been given all the tools and the equipment and all the things to make you safe. If you don't use it, it's on you. It's not on the business. It's not on the body corporate. And I guess on the homeowners association in the individuals' homes as well, the same ruling would apply. So yeah, just to touch on Jannie's point, health and safety, we don't really think about it, and people are in and out of these complexes. I mean, we're in and out of them all the time. We're in for an hour or two and we're out, or 3 hours and we're out. But when you've got an ongoing project, and certainly with painting and roof fixing, and these guys are working at heights. They may be painting at the top of a 4th floor or the 3rd floor, and they possibly on big ladders. Maybe they've got scaffolding. So it's important to have some form of mandatory, just indemnifying yourselves from that. I think it's well worth looking into from a body corporate as a standard procedure.
100%.
But Glen, if I can jump in there, it can add to the cost considerably. We've got a problem, 40,000 rand. So the quote to repair is 40,000 rand. Our scaffolding is 300,000 rand for the 5 days.
Yeah. Do you know what it costs? Do you know what it costs to pay for somebody that's fallen?
Hey, that's the insurance guy. That's Mike's division. It's not my division.
Not if it's and this is just what I've learned, Poena, not if it's on your property.
Yeah, crazy.
No, I'm putting your leg, but I'm just saying
I know. It's
the cost element can really push the project to an extent on safety and health to a point where it doesn't make sense in terms of the overall cost element.
Yeah.
We had to,
I think a big contributing factor is also trustees and perhaps managing agents that go for the zero increase levies. So there is just no money available to do things properly anymore. And as we know, it catches up with you, but still a lot of owners believe that you have good trustees if they can come up with a zero increase in levies. So owners are their own worst enemies as well. So the whole system is slowly but surely getting to a point where it would be very difficult to really maintain anything and to do it legally and do it properly. So yeah, I don't know. I think there will be a big overhaul necessary at some stage. I don't know how the other people feel about it.
I love the standards part when it comes down to it. It's that beer budget and champagne taste. They want everything done. It must be to standard. It must be this. It must be that. It must be the next thing. Until you say, okay, well, let's get it to standard and let's redo the wiring, or let's redo, replumb the whole building, or where would you like your discharge pipes to run through your lounge, your kitchen, your dining room, or the living room. And then actually you suddenly realize that the standards maybe not so important anymore. So sometimes the understanding of standards is a great idea, but the understanding of what it actually means, and I'm talking about geysers in a small, it's a small thing in the space, but it's, people love to complain about, is this to standard? Is that you install something to preserve the warranty, you install something to be safe for the owner, you install it to mitigate risk for the insurer. It doesn't always comply to the standards because the place or the location that it's installed in, especially in Cape Town, is a box, that just fits a geyser, that, you barely fit your hand in. You can't fit a drip tray. You can't fit all the other bits and pieces. So yeah, sometimes standards and things are nice to have rather than yeah, I still stick by the mandatory. It should be there. If it's a big enough project, it should be there. If you don't have a service provider that has a thing like that and is willing to go through that, you're probably looking for trouble.
I hear a lot of directives that should be placed on incoming trustees in meetings. Mike, and then Willie.
Such a wide subject. I wouldn't know where to really start. I think the easiest thing to do is to say, if the question is compliance, is actually insurance will cover you provided you comply with everything. So that's the short answer. And you know, I'm very pleased that Jannie stepped in there, because most of the compliance obviously pertains to the building, but don't think it's just the building. So it's not just the building and works around the building. I mean, you even have to comply if you want your fidelity cover in place, in that you must make sure that your managing agent is properly registered and all of those 12 things. So yes, unfortunately, insurance, we could go on, so I'm not going to, because there is, we've got a diagram, actually an AI-generated picture of this octopus with their hands around the building with tentacles going everywhere. It was Candace's idea, my colleague who's here, Candace, it's your idea with the octopus, because insurance tends to be touching on just about everything. Everything that goes wrong, there's an insurance angle to it. Except OHS compliance, by the way. So watch out for that one. It's very important. And unfortunately, I can't find an insurance policy that will indemnify you against being criminally liable, which I believe in terms of legislation on OHS that came out in 2014. I know there's been an amendment, but I don't know too much about it. But in 2014, it put a lot of responsibility on the client, and that's the body corporate, i.e. the trustees. So it's a whole different subject. It's not insurance. Just a point on Glen in my final bit of saying, I'd say that if you want to comply as best you can to make sure things don't go wrong, use professional contractors like NABA. We've got a big case going on at the moment, Jannie. I don't know if that scheme you visited the other day after we had lunch. Oh my goodness, you can't believe what's going on there. That's a war story of note. And you know what the biggest relief is? To the trustees. I told the trustees yesterday, in fact, thank goodness you actually had a professional oversight of the project in the first place. Had you chosen Willie, Willie, the roofing contractor, you know, you would have had a problem. So I think number one, choose a good contractor, and it also hats off to Glen's teams. These funny people that claim to be plumbers for schemes, and somebody's friend that comes out and can fix your geyser for cheaper, avoid it. Waterlight, for example, work at heights. They've got teams that know how to work at heights with proper equipment, proper ladders that have been designed for the job. Other people don't, and it's unsafe. You see these rickety things arriving, or they want to go through the ceiling instead of going through the roof, because they just aren't compliant, or they want to come along and bring scaffolding like Poena razors to do a geyser, and where Glen can do it properly with his teams. Yeah, so that's all I'm going to say. Use the professionals. I think that's key to the game, and try and be compliant as you can be if you want your insurance in place.
Yeah.
I just wish they would all listen to me all the time when they're working at heights and not take shortcuts when they want to.
Oh dear. Willie, do you want to wrap it up for us?
I see we are running out of time. So I just wanted to make a small little change in the discussion, and specifically regarding AGMs and what needs to be done. And I just want to reiterate that it's very important to budget for legal fees, specifically because the scheme now has to pay that fee until such a time as the fee has been agreed or has been taxed. So make sure that you have that in your budgets. So that's an important thing. And then I wanted to touch on a post going around on social media about the High Court reshaping how levy recoveries is taking place. And people are so happy because the attorneys are now curtailed in respect of their fees and so forth.
And you don't have
Now,
to levy. That's how some people have interpreted
and people are interpreting it as such. So it is very dangerous for any professional actually to put a post like that onto social media. And I've replied to that on most of the posts where I could find it all over. But just to the managing agents, that is an interlocutory matter. It means that The court has not made a decision on that. All the court has done is said, prima facie, it looks as if there can be something that we can look at a later stage. And that's all the court did. So there's no ruling of such. There is no jumping on the attorneys because they've paid or they were paid an excessive amount or anything of a sort. The court has just merely said, okay, we're going to allow this defendant his day in court to come and say to the court what he wants to say. And we will then at that stage make a decision. So it is a dangerous thing to put these things on social media, especially if you're not an experienced legal practitioner and come from government sectors and so forth. So you need to understand how law works before you actually make posts like that. So make sure that you've got budgets in place in respect of your levies, and carry on, do your collections, because there is an obligation to collect on schemes. Sorry that I changed it, but I just thought it is such a dangerous post that's going around.
It's super important. Look, other than legal fees, professional fees as well, for services such as Glen, for services such as Abrie, for services such as NABA, I think it's super important. And then, Willie, I hope you're going to be writing something more formal than responses on social media about that. I think it is desperately needed, because the issue about legal fees is also something that should be dealt with at an annual general meeting, not only from a budget perspective, but how the body corporate is going to get around recovering it. Obviously, we know that people aren't going to agree to legal fees unless you're holding the levy clearance certificate over their heads and you enter into some form of negotiation. But there needs to be some form of member agreement, rule, pressure that is put on debtors and defaulters, which is why I also asked Mareliza the question earlier about the attendance of defaulters at meetings. You know, it's very easy to be a defaulter if you never actually come into contact with your fellow owners. But if you sit at a meeting and it is announced that you're placing the body corporate in a prejudicial situation, I think that peer pressure is sometimes quite good at getting the response that you need from that data. So very, very important points. We have run terribly over today, but it shows you that it's been an interesting one. And of course, we all love to talk. So we all love to support each other, as you would have heard as well. If you have questions for any individual, Carl did post their contact details on the chat. Otherwise, it will all be shared with the recording. And perhaps, Mike, you mentioned that octopus that Candace came up with. Let's add that to the website and the recording as well. And then, Willie, as soon as you've written your hard-hitting article about these terrible attorneys with their horrible legal fees and everyone's right not to pay levies, please share that with us as well, and we'll post it accordingly. So thanks everyone for joining us today, and we'll see you for our next one in May. I think Carl did share the date of that as well. Don't hesitate to get in contact with us, and until next time, thank you so much for joining, and have a good day further. Thanks guys. Thank you team. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.